Today I'm replacing truck sets on my older freight cars. Coming right up. I'm Roy Smith. Thanks for joining me. As you know, I'm upgrading a bunch of older freight cars that my friend Robert Browning sent to me. Today I'm replacing the truck sets on those cars. Of course, by truck sets, I'm referring to trucks, wheels, and truck-mounted couplers. My goal? To make the cars run better and look more realistic. And I hope that my experience in doing this will be useful to you as you work on your layout. Here you see those cars sitting on or laying on track 1. I have been adding weight to them as you've seen me doing in previous episodes of this freight car upgrade series. There's a link to the series down below where you can go to watch the previous episodes. All of the cars that I just showed you came with older truck-mounted horn hook couplers. I'm replacing them with new trucks that have knuckle couplers. I'm working on this gondola today. Before replacing the truck sets on the gondola, I'm going to add some weight to it as I've been doing with the other cars in the series. I begin by removing the coal load because I don't intend to haul coal in gondolas on my layout. I have decided to use liquid gravity to add weight to this car. Gondolas are hard to add weight to because there's no good place to hide it, unlike, say, boxcars in which it is easy to hide additional weight. Now I'm gluing the liquid gravity in place using a 50-50 mix of white glue and water. The glue has dried, so now I'm installing a false floor in the gondola to conceal the liquid gravity using a piece of styrene cut to fit. Unfortunately, adding the liquid gravity and a false floor reduced the depth of the interior of the gondola, but it may not be so obvious once I paint the styrene. And of course it won't be obvious at all when running the gondola loaded with scrap metal or other materials. Now we can begin to do what we came here to do today, that is, to replace the trucks, couplers, and wheels on this car. Like all of the older cars, the gondola came with truck-mounted horn hook couplers, such as you see here on the left. For many years, nearly all N-scale rolling stock came with horn hook couplers like this. The problem with horn hook couplers is they don't look anything like real train couplers. So most people want to replace them with knuckle couplers that are far more realistic. I'm replacing the horn hooks on my cars with micro-trains trucks having knuckle couplers like the one on the right. These look prototypical and they function much like couplers on real trains. Here's a closer view of the two types of couplers, the horn hook coupler on the left and the knuckle coupler on the right. In N-scale, couplers are usually mounted on the trucks, but you can install body-mounted couplers if you want to. On the left, you see an example of a body-mounted coupler which doesn't move when the truck moves. And on the right, a truck-mounted coupler which does move when the truck moves. I may switch to body-mounted couplers in the future when I have more time and patience, but in the meantime, I'm satisfied with truck-mounted couplers. I'm installing Microtrain's modern-era Barber roller-bearing trucks with short shank couplers on my freight cars. You can also buy these trucks with medium and long shank couplers to use on longer freight cars or on layouts with sharp curves. I buy them fully assembled rather than unassembled because my fingers are too big and these things are too small for me to put together myself. By the way, there's an excellent video about real railroad truck sets on the Paragon Bridgeworks channel. I encourage you to go take a look at this video. I will put a link to it down below. Before putting trucks on cars, I like to install metal wheels in the trucks. It's easier to do this before mounting the trucks on the cars. Until now, I've been using Fox Valley 36-inch wheels, or I should say wheel sets, which include the wheels and the axles. But Fox Valley metal wheel sets no longer seem to be available, and I'm running out of them, having used them to replace all of the plastic wheels on my tank cars. So I may have to switch to another brand. I've got some Intermountain metal wheels. I've also got some metal wheels from Eastern Seaboard Models, And I've pre-ordered Microtrain's metal wheels, but who knows when they will arrive. Quite honestly, I can't see much of a difference among the various brands of metal wheels. I certainly don't know if any one brand is better than the rest. I also can't see the difference between 36-inch and 33-inch wheels in N scale. Up until now, I've been using 36-inch wheels, but I'm thinking of switching over to 33-inch wheels for the older freight cars that I'm upgrading. It probably would be more prototypical. For another thing, 33-inch metal wheels seem to be more readily available. And I think 33-inch wheels should lower the center of gravity just a bit on the cars, and lowering the center of gravity in freight cars is a good thing. I hope to talk more about metal wheels in a future video. So I'd love to hear from you about your experience with them in the comments section down below. Now would also be a good time to paint and weather the wheels and trucks before installing them on the cars, instead of trying to do it after installing them. Painting and weathering them helps to get rid of the plastic shine. It also makes the details on the trucks and wheels far more visible. I do have an airbrush and compressor that I could use to do this. After all, airbrushing does produce amazing results. But honestly, I hate all of the setup and cleanup that come with using airbrushes. I prefer to use other painting and weathering techniques. For example, you can use paint pens. You may need to nip off a bit of the tip of your paint pen to make it more pointed, because N-scale wheels are pretty small. Paint pens come in various colors, including rusty rail, steel rail, and weathered tie brown. Here you see me trying out rusty rail. Or you can paint your trucks and wheels using a microbrush. N-scale wheels usually come already blackened, but painting them helps eliminate their shininess. It's a little difficult in N-scale, but try to avoid getting paint on the pointed ends or tips of the axles. Getting paint here could interfere with the smooth turning of the axles in the journal boxes. Also, try to keep paint off the wheel treads, because that paint might end up on the tops of your rails, and you don't want that. While you're at it, you can paint the side frames of your trucks as well. And you can apply pan pastels to your wheels and trucks. This will help bring out their detail so that you can actually see them better. I like to use gray, yellow, and white to do this, along with a bit of rust color. You can make your wheels and trucks look rusty, like this, or not so rusty, like this. And you can paint the shiny trip pins on your couplers so that they look more like air hoses. You can see the difference on the gondola, where I have painted the trip pin on one end of the car, but not yet on the other end. I'm not sure if painting the trip pins will affect magnetic uncoupling, but I don't use magnetic uncouplers on my layout. I tried using Kato magnetic uncouplers. I was planning to use them in my staging yard, but I wasn't happy with the way they worked. So I removed them from the staging yard tracks, and now I have a whole bag full of them. I also tried using Microtrain's magnetic uncouplers, but got the same results. I decided that I'd rather use a Rick's pick or a wooden skewer to uncouple my cars, like this, everywhere on my layout, instead of using magnetic uncouplers. As an alternative to painting the trip pins, you might be able to blacken them using a product such as Neolube. Supposedly, Neolube brushes on metal surfaces smoothly and without streaking. I have ordered this product and will try it out when it arrives. I will let you know how it works. And speaking of painting and weathering, we're going to do that to the bodies of the freight cars in a future episode, along with applying some graffiti. Now we have to remove the old trucks if we haven't already done so. Some cars come with bolster screws that hold on the trucks. This gondola, for example, happens to be a Bachmann, which comes with bolster screws. Here I'm taking out the screws to remove the truck from the gondola. Of course, most N-scale cars come with bolster pins rather than screws. To remove bolster pins, you gently pry up on the truck from below using a small flathead screwdriver, as I'm doing here. Be careful not to lose the screw or pin, because you will want to use it again, if possible, to install the new truck. Now, as I said, I like to install metal wheels on a new truck before installing the truck on a car. I find it to be easier to do this before mounting the trucks on a car. Make sure that the wheels spin freely in the trucks. Okay, I simply install the new trucks with metal wheels using the original screw. We'll talk more about metal wheels in an upcoming episode. Be sure the screw is not too tight or too loose. I like to screw it in fairly tightly and then back it out just a bit so that the truck rotates freely but without a lot of wobble. Now I'm checking the coupler height using a Microtrains coupler height gauge. Making sure that all the couplers are installed at the correct height helps to avoid unwanted uncouplings. And I'm making sure that the trip pins aren't too low. If they are too low, they could catch on your turnouts and derail the car. If the trip pins slide over the top of this strip of metal that comes with the coupler height gauge without touching the metal strip, then the trip pin is okay. Otherwise, you would have to bend it upward a little. We'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. And of course, it's a good idea to make sure that the wheels are in gauge using either an NMRA gauge or a Microtrains gauge. Well, there you have it. That's how to install new truck sets on your older freight cars. Doing this is one more step you can take to ensure that your freight cars run well and look realistic. As I said, I will put a link to my freight car upgrade playlist down below so that you can go back and watch any previous episodes in this series. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't done it yet so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Thanks again for joining me today. I'm Roy Smith. Until next time, happy railroading.